Hey guys, and welcome to another series starter, Time-lapse. So I decided to start this series, just the geographical sort of shape with these, whatever you want to call them, plateaus, I guess, sticking up. Made me have this idea here, and I thought it was just going to be a pretty small little, short little build where just like a village that might have had just this little dry dock and whatnot. But as I started building it, I thought, what if we go bigger? So that's basically where this came in at is, well, I wanted a big dry dock, a big shipbuilding area and whatnot, and this was the one place to do it. Now, I haven't seen too many of these on YouTube at all, actually, and it was a pretty popular build, I guess, a pretty popular building, a pretty popular thing around the that kind of medieval scene. If you have ships, you had to have a place to build them. So this is kind of a place where they would build these sort of ships at. Now, obviously, I can't build a ramp very smooth in Minecraft and whatnot. So the scale of this, I just dropped it a block at a time. It comes out, I think, maybe 4 blocks and then drops a block and then 4 blocks and drops a block. And for now, that's the slope that I'm going to go with. Now, we could actually go and drop this down a little bit more by doing it like half slabs at a time, but this was well enough, especially with the size of ship that actually goes here. You guys will see what I'm talking about. Now, this actually goes for a new build that I'm going to be starting off here. I wanted this build to kind of come out and try to get people hyped up and whatnot to see where we're going to go with this. Now, for you guys that have seen Lord of the Rings, which hopefully is about everybody because they're fantastic, think sort of Rohan style, like where they go in the second movie, The Two Towers, and they find Theoden and all them, just sort of the mountaintop or the hilltop fortress of Edoras. Just kind of think that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just type in Edoras in Google and it'll pop up, and hopefully you guys can get where I'm trying to go with this. But that's sort of the style. So we're going to have sort of out in the plain, sort of horse lord, sort of wooden structure, kind of not really ran down, but just sort of cheaply built, I guess would be the word for it. So it's just really like really wooden, with some stone accents and whatnot. And of course, it does go a lot better here, just sort of with mixing in some cobblestone. And I actually have this hewn stone, which is going to be a sort of kind of foundation block for a lot of our builds. So here you can see me, I'm actually putting in rollers or these logs, and I'm putting in iron fence in between them to try to make them look like pivot points. And I'm going to use these logs as rollers. So you would build your ship up on top of the log, and then whenever you would go to launch it, you would have people with ropes and whatnot pull it along down the ramp, and you wouldn't want to scrape your boat to pieces that you just built. So what people would do is they would lay down these logs as rollers, and as you moved your ship, the ship would actually roll on top of the log, or even slide across the log, and it would stop it from scraping and scratching up on the stone bottom of the dry dock. So that's why I actually put that in there. Now, this build looked really basic here at first, and the scale is really going to be hard to sort of decorate up and whatnot. I try my hardest, but at the end of the day, it still looks pretty plain. At one time, I actually cut to build onto this, just because it would have taken me absolutely forever to figure out how to do it. As a matter of fact, it did, and I was even off camera trying to figure out how to build it. I'll reference this back here in a second. So I wanted this to be sort of the main aspect of this town. I don't actually have a name for the town yet, so if you guys can think of a town name, please drop it down in, and if I like it enough, I'll pull it up, and if there's enough names, I'll probably even pull from some and kind of mix and match until I find a name that looks and seems really fitting, I guess. So now with the dry dock, it actually does still kind of turn out to be more of a harbor. So I definitely need this platform up here, and we need the buildings and the warehouses and whatnot to house the materials that you're actually going to be using to build these ships with. So you wouldn't bring them in as you're building the ship. You would already have them here, most of them at least, and then you would drag them from there down to the dry dock to build your ships. So at first I didn't really realize that you still need to get down to the dry dock. So I actually build stairs here at the bit. I'm not too sure exactly where it is. Since this is a pretty long time lapse, there is a lot of space here to cover. Now, at the end of the day, I do think that these materials work really well with each other. And hopefully whenever we get a whole town built out of this stuff, it doesn't look too bland. Now, I actually had to break this up here into 4 or 5 different parts. A couple of them are pretty seamless. I know there's at least 3 seams that you can definitely tell here in the video. But here's where I build these stairs down to the dry dock. And then I decide that the logs are actually way too long. These rollers are actually way too long. So then I go through and edit them here a little bit. That way you have a area to work with, a space to work with, and whatnot. Now, Conquest actually has these rails that you can use. So I actually went and put them up the stairs, and then I'm underneath of it now, filling out supports and whatnot. So I'm pretty sure here soon, like right after this, actually jump over to building the first building here. Yeah, here we go. So I'm not too sure exactly what these buildings do. Most of them are just warehouses. One of them are going to be a sort of like a harbor master, like a harbor master's area. I don't know if you'd really have one of them on a shipbuilder or a dry dock, but you had to have somebody being in charge of it. So this will probably be like his quarters or something like that. But yeah, guys, I mean, Conquest has a lot of blocks here that you can sort of choose from, and actually go and reset these blocks back 1. It does make it look a little bit better. But the hewn stone there is a Conquest block, and in certain situations it does look really nice, and depending on what the build was, it would look pretty nice as well. So here you can actually see me putting on this roof, and I wanted it to be sort of Norse-ish, Viking-ish. If you go and you look at the homes of like Edoras, or whatever you want to call it, Rohan, a lot of them have this sort of Viking style with the cross beams, and actually on theirs, the cross beams actually turn into horse heads. Now, it being Minecraft, actually can't put horse heads into the game, obviously, but yeah, we just decided to do this, and it takes away sort of from the Nordic, because the house is just a regular A-frame, but still it adds a lot of detail and a lot of aspect here to the actual style of the builds. So right now I'm actually going through and putting in orange wool, and the reason that I'm doing that is because I want the roof to be a mix between thatch and hay. Now, if you actually go and do the different types of thatch, you can actually get different variations of the thatch and whatnot, and it does make it look a little bit better. But still, at the end of the day, I think this is the way to go about it. And yeah, it does seem pretty bland at first. I actually come through later on with stairs, and I don't think I do any slabs, but the stairs for sure I add in. And I believe off camera actually came in and just sort of put some like dry plants and stuff there, to where it kind of made it look like it was fraying up, and like the weather kind of busted some seams, and might have even busted up a hay bale or two, so, or the thatch or so you have some strands sticking up. And yeah, so there you can actually see I went to go do it, and it didn't turn out the first time, so I was trying to figure out what went wrong. So now I undo it all and actually go and look, and what had happened is I didn't add in the variations. So whenever I add in the variations, then it finally came and did this bit right here, where you can see the differences in the orientations and whatnot of the block. Now, realistically, you wouldn't do that, but in Minecraft, it looks a lot better if you kind of break up the simplicity. Sort of break up the big blank palette of blocks, and by randomizing your orientation, it actually does that very well. So right there was the first cut, and then I actually come back after days of not building, and then I decide it doesn't quite look right with the ground just blended into the dock, or into this pier platform. So then I decided, well, we'll build a retaining wall. I think it would look a lot better. So then I start to do that, and then it's just basically the birchwood plank, or birchwood logs that we've been using, birchwood beams. And then I just sort of put the hewn stone behind it, and at first I thought, well, I'll just come straight across. And it didn't really look the greatest like that. So then I decided to angle them down, sort of slope the walls down, and just sort of follow the curvature of the area, the ground in the area itself. And I think it turns out a lot better. So right here, what we're actually going to do is, once you get here to this area, I think it actually looks really nice. So we came across, and then I sort of dropped down because the terrain dropped down, and then we clear all this dirt out here in a minute. But at the end, I just sort of curve around the this retaining wall at the end of the platform. And it really adds a lot to the detail. Now, if you remember, the dry dock itself actually curves out that way. The ramp itself curves out that way, and I don't remember if you can actually see it here in the time lapse again. But it does kind of follow that curve just because, just to sort of mix it up, just to kind of cut all the hard angles and stuff off of the build. And at the end of the day, I do think that it looks better. So then I actually had to go through here and fix all the problem that I had there with, whenever I flattened out that area, I actually cut half of the top of the wall off in the logs, and then I actually come back and fix that bit there on the rounded part. So there are a lot of buildings here on this platform that I don't know exactly what they do. So we have a crane, we have a warehouse, and then these two over here on this side are just kind of there. So the one of these are actually going to have to be like the harbor master, or the dry dock master, like the guy that kind of watches over the build, or the shipbuilding. But I'm not too sure what the other one is actually going to be out to. So there you can kind of see, I noticed that it looked really plain down there, so I actually come through with a brush and just try to add in some stairs to break up the flatness, I guess you could say, the uniformity. Try to break it up, make it look like there are some boards missing and broken, and it's not completely flat. So I actually do that to the wood and to the hewn stone itself, and I just figured, that it would be better off not to add that onto the screen. And yeah, so here I'm actually about to start on the second building. I get the materials here and whatnot, and I figure some stuff out, and I actually added in on some detail on these logs to where they wouldn't be as flat. So I actually had to go through and get rid of those before we actually started building. So the weird thing about this building is, I thought I'll just leave it this kind of modular sort of long building, but then it was going to resemble the one beside of it. So then I decide, here in a minute you'll see, just to kind of create like a wing sort of popping off of it, and it does really help out, and it takes up a lot more space. And that's going to be the hardest part about this build, guys, is to figure out where all the decoration's going to go. Now, I have been working off camera here for a couple days, and I have some details put in, but I'm not too sure about it, and it still really looks plain, like it looks empty. So I'm really going to have to do some hard decorating going on here, and some crates and boxes and barrels and all that good stuff here. But it's not a cargo dock, so there's not going to be a whole lot of cargo around here. So I really do have to worry about that, and try not to put too much cargo on. So over there, I thought I was a lot further done with that whenever I had pivoted the camera around here. But all I do is put the roof on, and then figure out how to make the roof and randomize the roof and all that good stuff, like I did the other house. So now, if you pay attention to this corner, you can actually see how the ground sort of slopes up there to the back half, and then up there it's actually really high as well. So I'm actually going to try to have a structure up there, and then back on the upper right hand side there near the tree line, we're actually going to have like a main hall. So the actual hall of Edoras, like the castle, I guess you could say, of Rohan, the building that Theoden and them are in. Whenever the Fellowship first gets there and they try to take Gandalf's walking stick, that's the hall of Edoras. So I'm going to try to have one of those up there on the hill. It looks like the best place to put it. It's going to be up on a platform along with a lot of the other houses. So hopefully that is a better way to do it. So here you just kind of see me just sort of filling out the framework for the roof and stuff. And since I didn't do a whole lot of the roof on the other one, I thought maybe I would show you guys the roof on this one. And you guys could see how it really plays out. So again, guys, a good trick that you can do here is if you go and add in whatever kind of block. I just use orange wool because I know the ID very well, the ID number. So I just put the orange wool, and then whenever I come back through, so it works really good with roofing materials, or if you want to randomize your materials, then you get the ID number for orange wool. It is 35:1, and then you mask that with a brush tool on World Edit with whatever item or block IDs that you want to throw in there. And then whenever you use that command on the orange wool, for example, anything that's orange wool gets changed to whatever block you wanted. So this right here is actually the warehouse building that I was talking about, and I decided to do this really kind of big upstairs opening on it. I wanted to call it a barn opening, but it's not really a barn opening, like a loft type ordeal, I guess, like where you would throw hay in a barn. But it's just really this big building where we're gonna have like wood planks and sails, like the sails for the ships and whatnot in there, and that's pretty much it. I mean, that's all it's going to be up there. So here I'm actually moving on to this massive crane that I decided to build, and at first I wanted it to look really sort of stabilized and whatnot, so I decided to put this huge footprint on the thing, and then after I started building it, it didn't look stabilized at all. Like it just turns into this big stilt building, I guess, with like the huge crane on top. It didn't look good, didn't look stabilized, so then I changed it. And this is what I was talking about, where I actually cut here to figure out the shape and whatnot of the actual crane that I wanted to do, and it turns out really, really well. So here, most medieval cranes actually have a big wheel on it that have people in it, or you would have animals sort of walk around in a circle or spin this wheel, and you would actually wrap the rope or the chain or whatever up around it, and it would be your old style of sort of, I don't know what you would call them, hydraulic lines, I guess. So instead of having hydraulics and stuff like they do modern day, take the load, you would just have people or animals, like I said, walk around in a circle or in a big wooden wheel, and as it spun around, it would wrap the chain or the rope around it, which would in turn then lift, raise, or lower the rope here on the crane. So you would raise or lower whatever you're lifting. So that's kind of what I'm trying to replicate here, is like one of the big wheels that actually turn and would wrap, in this case it's chain, around this big wheel to raise and lower whatever the crane is lifting. So here I actually cut, and right here is the finished product of the crane. Now, it actually took me about an hour and a half to detail this crane and stuff to the level of detail that you actually see right here. Now, it still doesn't really look stabilized in my opinion. It is very massive. It is very sort of tied to the ground, I guess you could say. And I mean, I am happy with the crane. I'm happy with the finished product. It is detailed very well. It did turn out very nice. I like the way that it looks, and it comes out, then you kind of see these chains dropping down to this big metal claw that they would use to lower or raise things off of the ships, and that's how you would build it. Now the ship I actually didn't build. It is a copy of one of Lord Dacre's schooners, or however you pronounce it, and I actually cut most of it off, and I didn't do the mast and the sails and all that stuff to make it look like it was still well under construction. So I actually came through here and changed some details on it as well, added some platforms and stuff. I will show you guys in episode 2 of this. I'm probably going to do those, I want to do a lot of it in first person, but for the bigger projects and stuff, we'll probably definitely have some time lapses, but for sure, first persons. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you smack that like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any more. And yeah, guys, drop me a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Telling me, or dropping any comments or anything like that. Anyway, guys, I will see you later and catch you on the next one. See you later, guys.
I'm barely breathing, I'm barely awake. You left me in pieces, there's no more to break. Don't wake me up, not in this